Chief Medical Director, sir, welcome. Staff of the Deep Concept, our dear students, you are welcome. I want to say Happy New Year to us all. It's good to be back again, and the journey continues. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. We are here again to continue with our usual antenatal class, where we equip, we empower, we give knowledge, and we do advocacy to ensure that you are not only just taking care of yourself, your unborn baby, but we also ensure that you are advocates, you are ambassadors. We want to welcome you to 2023. Our very important year in the annals of our Nigerian history, where we have had unbroken democracy now for about 24 years and a year of election. As usual, before we continue and introduce these beautiful people that are standing behind me here with their new uniform, Ebony Waves, let's put our hands together for them. Ebony Waves are looking great and fine. We will start with the second stanza of our national anthem, which is a prayer, followed by the deep anthem, and then we introduce the song, the lecture, before we take mother and child, and the lecture will start. Please indulge us to please be on our feet. I want to appreciate and welcome all of you that came very early, and especially also those of you that also came with your spouses. We thank you for your presence. Let's be on our feet as we take the second stanza of our national anthem, followed by the deep anthem.
O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow and live in justice true. Great love the height obtain to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Together bringing hope for the joy of mankind, committed to excellence, home and abroad, motivated we are, together we stand. God bless this legacy. God bless his legacy. Decentralized sectors, yet integrated, effective and harmonious workforce we are. Erase modernity, encourage research. God's grace is what we enjoy. More grace to this legacy. United, upholding the dream we all share.
Thank you, Ebony Waves. As we take our seat, let's put our hands together for them again. God bless this legacy indeed. We are making a promotion. We are promoting something that has not been done before in this nation. And we're trying to bring a healthcare system that we know will be second to none, and as much as possible as comparable to anywhere else in the Western world. We know that they pride themselves as having the best. They pride themselves as having attained certain heights. We will get to that height. In fact, we have gotten to that height already. Nigeria is considered as one of the 7 most disadvantaged country to be born in. It's a very profound statement, and it's a very difficult. In fact, we are competing with second or the last, if not the last already. Throughout this Christmas period and New Year, the festive period, a lot of you may be at home. We were busy working. On Christmas Day, I know 2 deliveries took place that day. A few minutes after we entered into the New Year, a set of twins was delivered by our Chief Medical Director at about 4 a.m. this morning. I took a delivery. And we have been working. We didn't go anywhere. All of us are here, and we're ensuring that your safety is our concern. Pediatric team and their members are here. The anesthetic team, everybody, all joints were supplying. Ensure that your safety are not taken for granted. I earlier said that the journey of 1,000 years starts with the first step. First is to get pregnant. So we nurture. And we also nurture. We don't have control over what nature brings. But now, with the assisted conception, let me correct myself, we can even nurture what we want. Some people are coming now to want to deliver babies with blue eyes. Some people want to be delivered to babies that are very fair. I see some very beautiful, fair women here. I can see some also dark people like us here. So at conception, we are nurturing, but we now nurture. Environmental factors coming to put us in that very bad light, where the under 5 die. And one of the things that can prevent, after the child is delivered, Dr. Charles and his team take over these children, is to ensure that this baby transit well. They resuscitated. The baby, like the baby we just delivered at 4 a.m. this morning, they're already there. There's always a team ready to receive the baby. And they receive the baby and now continue with it. And it's like that. The day, it was a big ceremony, the day MD delivered our New Year babies, a set of twins. And it was there. The whole hospital, people will be wondering, what is going on? Patients were asking me later, was there a festival going on in the hospital? So it's like that. And to take care of, to ensure that your baby remain healthy and it doesn't fall under that category of babies that will die under 5, but they will live to fulfill their God-given potential. They will live to be, life expectancy is increasing, and I believe that life expectancy will increase with us and our children. Our children should outlive us, and our children should be greater than us. So we're going to talk about these babies that we bring into the world. What are the environmental, one of the major environmental factors that will affect them are infection. And they need to be immunized. Babies are born with some passive immunity in some places. So I'll not be giving the lecture. The lecturer is ready. Our own dear Dr. Charles is married and he has children. He's a fellow of the West African College of Physicians in Pediatrics. He'll be talking to us about how to protect our children and discuss immunization with us today. And after Ebony Ways has given us mother and child, which we are about to discuss, Dr. Charles will take over the mic and give us his lecture on immunization. Let's put our hands together as we invite Ebony Ways again once more to give us mother and child.
Thank you, sir.
changes this year. I can see some fresh dancing steps, some nice attire. They are still appreciating you. Well done. We've introduced our guest speaker already, our own amiable, gentle, very cerebral Dr. Charles Olona. Dr. Charles Olona is not only married, he has 4 children. He's competing with some of us.
I think I would like to stay down. Happy New Year to everybody here. Please, Happy New Year. And I'm happy that the children, pediatrics, are the ones setting the pace this year. And I hope that your strength will be more than our own. We know how to run. We are the very young ones. So welcome to the first antenatal class for 2023. We hope that this year we are going to have more interactive section, and we hope that our sections are going to be very fulfilling. I'm going to speak on a very important topic that affects almost every child. And the topic is immunization, saving the child against killer disease. That's what I'm going to speak on today. Next, the essence of this is that at the end of the presentation, next slide, please. Is at the end of the presentation, everyone here will have an understanding of the importance of vaccination. And the parents will acquaint themselves with the various types of vaccine that is available and the schedule. Oftentimes, we have challenges, people not knowing what we are giving the child. They're like, the child got the vaccine. When you have interaction with mothers, you ask them, what vaccine did your child get? Say, I didn't miss anyone, no. But when you now go into the integrity of the vaccine the child got, you find out that a large number of vaccines were not received. So at the end of this, our interaction, we're going to have at least an idea of what the vaccines are and the schedule. Next slide, please. So we're going to go through this outline. We'll look at, as an introduction, what generally is vaccine, how did vaccine come about, the various types of vaccine, and we'll look at the benefits of immunization. Next slide. So what is immunization? The very simple way I define it is it's an effective way of protecting oneself and the family. So when you're able to immunize yourself or a child in the family, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting the family. It is a process by which a vaccine is given to an individual to protect that person against a particular disease. Now what the vaccine does is, like, the vaccines are agents that causes the body to act in certain ways, thereby producing certain substances within that keep the body protected against foreign organisms. Those substances are able to identify your own body as self, so it cannot damage yourself. But when you come in contact with those foreign organisms, those strangers in the body, their ability to induce in the body what we call antibodies that can destroy those infections. So we are talking about immunity. Immunity is the ability of the body to tolerate itself at self. That's discriminating itself from foreign organisms. So that's what vaccination does. We try to give something that will help the body to produce certain things that can now destroy foreign organisms. So that's what vaccination does. Next slide. So how did vaccine come about? In the year 1796, it was a very big milestone in medical, in entire history of medicine, when it was discovered. The world was being ravaged by an infection called smallpox. People were dying in large numbers. And Edward Jenner, who we call the father of vaccines, discovered the value of smallpox vaccine. And that changed the whole perspective. In fact, it was through that discovery that the world was able to eradicate smallpox. He also discovered the cowpox vaccine. We're hearing of monkeypox, so many pox are there. It is by the use of these agents, these vaccines, that we're able to, contend with these epidemics. Next slide, please. So over the histories, there have been a lot of vaccines that have been, discovered or developed. We know that the most recent one was with the pandemic of COVID-19. Everybody was on standstill. We were waiting for a vaccine to be discovered. When that came about, everybody was excited. People were getting the vaccines. People were advised to get booster doses. And I hope everybody here has gotten the booster dose for that. So vaccine has impacted the world in so many ways. With every epidemic, with every new disease, the world hopes that, there will be a vaccine for that epidemic. And that's the beautiful thing about vaccination. It is a hope we have. In fact, whenever there's a new outbreak, people are just clamoring. Can they type it? Can they isolate a vaccine for it? So it's the hope we have, for a breakthrough for even diseases we have not seen. So next slide, please. So what are the important facts of vaccine? Now, prior to the introduction of vaccination globally, we find that when we look at causes of death, millions of children died. When we look at the under 5 mortality rates in Nigeria in the 1978, because large-scale vaccination, expanded program of immunization was introduced in 1979 when we had the primary health care. Our mortality rates for under 5 were over 200. You have a lot of children, millions of them dying from 200 per 1,000. So when you're looking at it in a larger scale, you see millions of children are dying from vaccine-related disease. I will recall when I was in medical school, we used to have what we call tetanus ward. When you go to tetanus ward, you see a lot of newborn babies all admitted, all having tetanus. But with the increased usage, uptake of vaccination, you find out that most of these infections have been curtailed. Now, permit me to say that certain times when tetanus are admitted in some hospitals, some doctors go just to have an experience on how to manage those kind of disease. So vaccine has impacted in our world so much. So we find out that on a global scale, a lot of people were dying from whooping cough, from measles, from tetanus, from so many diseases that could be prevented. Now, immunization currently has been documented by CDC to prevent about 3.5 to 5 million deaths every year from diseases like caused by diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, influenza, and measles. So immunization is a very key component of primary health care, and in some countries, it is human rights. When you don't give a child immunization, you are liable. So it is a fundamental human right. Next slide, please. So what are the various types of vaccine we have? Vaccines are of different types. They are not all the same. That's why sometimes some you get many more doses, some you get few doses. Now, the very first vaccine we call is the one we call the live attenuated vaccine. In brackets, we call them weakened. They are live organisms, but they've been treated in a way that they can no longer cause that disease. We say they have been weakened. The strength of them causing disease have been taken away from them. So those vaccines are organisms. They are like the microorganisms. But when you now inject them in your body, they're able to help the body stimulate the production of antibody such that when you now come in contact with a virulent strain of that organism, the body is able to contend that organism. Examples are the one we call the MMR, the oral polio vaccine. The oral polio vaccine is a live polio vaccine, but it has been handled in a way that it may not be able to cause polio. And the BCG vaccine and the measles vaccine, they are live vaccines. So when you see them in that container, they contain living organisms. Okay? So that's what they are. We have the one they call the killed vaccine. These are vaccines that have been treated in a way that the organism have died. But we still use them because when they inoculate them in the body, they are able to help the body produce those antibodies. Examples of these ones are the injection polio vaccines. Those ones, they are not living. They are dead, but because they have been treated in that way, oftentimes we use chemicals like formalin to treat them in a way that they are killed completely before they are used. Now we have the one they call the subunit vaccine. These are vaccines that a part of the organism is actually taken to produce the vaccine, not the whole organism, in a way so it's not alive. But that part is kind of incorporated into another part, either like a conjugate vaccine that you incorporate it into a polysaccharide, or you add an adjuvant to make it become potent because it's actually a part, it's not a whole organism. So these are with technology, new vaccines are coming out. They're not using the whole vaccine again or killed vaccine. They're looking for vaccine that will have minimal effects on the human body. Because oftentimes you find out that when they give live vaccine, the number of times they give live vaccine are actually fewer. In some cases, they give once. Other cases, they just give a second booster dose. But the chance of having an infection from a live vaccine exists. So the world is tending towards running away from developing live vaccine or killed vaccine to those conjugate vaccines that are safer. But multiple doses are required for most of those conjugate vaccines. Example of those subunit vaccine and conjugate vaccine are the one we call a cellular pertussis vaccine, the hepatitis vaccine we take, and the hemophilus type B vaccine, we call it Hep B vaccine, and the pneumococcal vaccine. Next slide, please. So just as a summary, this table highlights, I'm sorry for the print, it's actually very small, highlight the various vaccines that are available. We have the BCG, the hepatitis B vaccine, it shows you the dose, where it is inoculated or how it is given, and the various number of units an individual is supposed to get. It's not so audible, so please just go to the next slide, please. So what does this vaccine prevent? When we hear BCG, you hear Hep B, you hear pentavalent vaccine. Everybody wants to know, my child got BCG. What does BCG really do? BCG is a vaccine we give to prevent against tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is one of the commonest, in fact, the most commonest cause of chronic respiratory infection in Nigeria. Millions of people suffer from tuberculosis. Now, somebody will say, my child cannot get tuberculosis. The truth is that it is an infection you cannot control how you get infected, because it is aerosol. Somebody will just cough in a public place or cough, just a mild cough, and the person will release some of those, what we call bacilli. They are small, tiny microorganisms you can't see with your naked eye just by coughing. And if a child or an adult is in that environment, the adult will just inhale that stuff and get tuberculosis. Now, there are other ways we get tuberculosis. When we drink milk, unpasteurized milk, that contain those tuberculous bacilli. Certain times when we eat, we like different types of meat, we want to mix one part of the lungs with, there are certain meats, when they kill them at the slaughter place, you find out that some of the parts may have those tuberculous bacilli. So people actually cut it in a way and they sell it. And ignorantly, you may just get the meat home, prepare a meal for family, and somebody will get infected by tuberculosis. So one cannot really control how you can get infected with tuberculosis, but you can prevent it. So, and that prevention is important. So that's what BCG does. BCG has been able to help us, save a lot of people from severe forms of tuberculosis. When you have BCG vaccine, the chances of getting the disseminated, or what we call extrapulmonary TB, is far reduced. And when someone is infected, find out a person will have will not respond in a way that somebody that is unvaccinated will respond to that disease. Now, what is hepatitis B vaccine? Hepatitis B is an infection that infects the liver. Now, it is another very endemic infection. Millions of people have hepatitis B. Now, the hepatitis B can be transmitted to a child by breastfeeding. That a mother can infect a child also in the womb with hepatitis B. Somebody can get hepatitis B by coming in contact with sharp object, blood, and blood transfusion and other things. So for most people that already have hepatitis B, we try to do the vaccination early before the child commences breastfeeding. All of this is to prevent transmission to the child. So it's a very important vaccine that helps prevent the transmission of hepatitis B. It's a cause of liver cirrhosis. It can also cause liver cancer. And a child who gets hepatitis B early in life has a higher chance of developing liver cirrhosis and then liver cancer than somebody who acquired hepatitis at a later stage of life. So it's a very important vaccine for us to give our children, so that in their course of their lifehood, if they come in contact with hepatitis B, they may not develop the severe form of hepatitis, because the body already have an immunity against hepatitis infection. Now, the pentavalent vaccine you hear when we say penta, is a vaccine that contains 5 different vaccines for 5 different organisms. The first one there you hear in the penta vaccine, it protects against diphtheria. Diphtheria is what we know that causes children to have throat and respiratory infection. When you see what we say bull neck and all those things, some of them may end up having even heart condition from the infection. So that's a very, very common infection in the 70s. But now we hardly see cases of diphtheria because it's one of the most vaccine that the uptake is high. A lot of people get, before it was DPT, they improved it, and now it's Penta. So the uptake of Penta is actually very nice. So you find out that we are seeing very low cases of diphtheria, but these infections are still there. They are still there. Another protection it gives is against tetanus. We know tetanus in those days used to have a ward. There's no hospital you can't see tetanus ward. So the tetanus component of it protects the child from tetanus infection. Then we also have pertussis. Pertussis is what causes what we call whooping cough. The child will cough and almost vomit everything the child is taking. You find out the child will cough and become breathless, what we call apneic. The child, some older children will cough, you'll be hearing them whooping when they are coughing. So the pertussis in that vaccine protects the child from pertussis infection. Now, a child in his lifetime can come across the Bordetella pertussis, what causes a pertussis. You find out that because the child is immunized, the cough will not really be that so severe. And we used to call it 100 days cough. The child may not cough for that very long time because the child has some form of immunity to fight that infection. Then we have the Haemophilus influenza type B, which is another important part of that penta that protects the child from the bacteria we call Haemophilus type B. So that causes meningitis. It also causes pneumonia in children. So when they take this penta, you see that they have protection against so many organisms that is capable of causing death in the children. Then there's another vaccine we call the pneumococcal vaccine. We just commonly call it PCV. It's called pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. Now, pneumococcal vaccine causes respiratory infection. It can cause lung infection. It can cause meningitis. It's one of the commonest causes of meningitis. It can cause outbreak of meningitis in nurseries. So when a child has PCV, you find out that the child is protected against pneumococcal infection. Next slide, please. So we have polio. Now, we were just at the edge of getting polio eradicated in the world. Before, it used to be the PAN country, the PAN meaning Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. Before it was PIN, the Indian, they got out of it, so it became PAN, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nigeria. We got to a point where we celebrated that we could no longer record polio in Nigeria, but we still have polio. So that's to say the value of this vaccination. Polio is a very terrible disease that causes severe debilitation. You find out that a lot of children have been paralyzed because of this infection. The child just wake up and the child cannot walk. And that's the end of the story for that child. The child will not just end there. It will damage the limb to a form that the child becomes helpless for life. So with the use of polio vaccine, the world came to a point where polio was almost eradicated. That's really the value of the vaccination we do. Now, we have vaccine we call MMRO. The M there means measles, mumps, and rubella. Now, measles is a known cause of death among children, particularly infants, in the 70s. Now, measles too occur, but because we have these vaccines against measles, we have the vaccine also protects against mumps. Mumps is a cause of infection that you find out that children will have this swelling in their parotid gland, it's just below the ears. Some other children, it may cause them abdominal pain because it can affect the ovaries. It can also affect their scrotum. So, those children, it can lead to infertility in those children. So, but by immunizing them with MMRO, you protect your child and you also protect your future generation, because when a child had mumps and the child is not protected and end up becoming, infertile for life, it's like you just terminated your lineage. So the MMRO is a very important vaccine that helps to protect a child, and also safeguards the future generation of the child. We have the chickenpox vaccine, popularly known as the varicella vaccine. We know chickenpox is a very endemic infection, very painful, annoying infection. It causes a lot of blisters, swelling all around the body, fever. It can cause meningitis, it can cause pneumonia. The child can have what we call encephalitis. The child can, end up with complications like blindness. But by giving a child varicella infection vaccination, you find out that the child is protected. In fact, there's a testimony I have about the varicella vaccine. I was to take my children to Port Harcourt, and I was like, they got varicella. When we got to Port Harcourt, it was like there was an outbreak of chickenpox in the home. I was like, what are we going to do? So protect, children, you can't really protect them. They've seen their cousins, they want to play with everybody. And some people that came from abroad, they got chickenpox. I was looking if I would see one blister. And I didn't see blister. I was saying what happened. I said I gave them chickenpox vaccine. So those are the value of vaccinating your children. We have hepatitis A vaccine. Hepatitis A is a very common cause of infection that looks like malaria. Oftentimes, people will have hepatitis A and they will think it's malaria. Most of the times, they get this from what we call fecal-oral, by taking in food from maybe vendors that are not hygienically prepared. The child may get hepatitis, may have fever, may have yellowness of the eyes, may have pain, swelling in the liver, just something that looks like malaria. In few cases, it may give you hepatitis. When you now do the test, you now say, oh, the child has hepatitis. But most cases, it is not well recognized. But the value of this vaccine is that it protects the child from hepatitis A. So that's another important vaccine that is available out there that we give to our children. Next slide, please. So what are the vaccines we give at birth? At birth, we want to give the child 3 important vaccines. We want to give the child BCG. We want to give the child hepatitis B vaccine, and we also give the child the oral polio vaccine. Next slide, please. Then at 6 weeks to 14 weeks, we kind of give the same type of vaccine. We give the pentavalent vaccine that has that very 5 important components I mentioned and that protect against those 5 common diseases that are known to cause death among children. We also give the child a rotavirus vaccine, and we'll give our first dose of our pneumococcal vaccine. Next slide, please. So from 9 months to when the child is an adolescent, we have a list of vaccines we give them. We give them yellow fever vaccine, we give them measles, we give them MMR. That's when we give the varicella vaccine. We also give our human papilloma virus vaccine, which protects against cancer to our adolescents. Next slide, please. So what's the process of immunization? The process is like we inoculate, the vaccine comes in that vaccine vial that contains the antigen. The antigen may be a live attenuated vaccine, which we say weakened. It may be a killed vaccine. It may be a conjugate vaccine. So we take the vaccine and we inject it in the body. Now, the body has what we call the immune system. We have the B and the T cells. Those are cells that are in the body. They're able to develop, when they see a foreign body, they would study the foreign body. If it's something they will need to fight, they are very few. They will go and make multiple copies of themselves. And as they are making copies of themselves to kill that foreign body, they will keep some memories in case that foreign body comes back next time. So we call them memory cells. Those are things in the body. So what those copies they will do now will now go and fight that foreign body. So by inoculating that antigen now, the antibodies in the body will make copies and destroy that antigen that we've inoculated in the child. But in doing so, he will leave memories that in case something that looks like this come into the body again, the body is already aware and will now fight in a greater fashion. So that's what happens with vaccination. So you find out that the body now stays immune because the body has that memory cells in them already. I have come in contact with this. I'm not a stranger to you. Come on. So that's what happens. So the person is immunized against, it's like what we say, Odeshi. I'm strong. I've seen you before. I've seen it all. Bring it up. So that's what happens with the process of immunization. Next slide, please. So why is the shot not recommended when the child is older? People say, why would you want to give a child? Somebody will say, I don't want to take immunization. How will you start choking this child from the very first day this child was born? Now, there are 2 important reasons why immunization are scheduled in the way they are scheduled. The first is that we want to give the vaccine when the vaccine will work the best for the child. Now, vaccines we give at birth are vaccines like BCG. We don't want the child to have tuberculosis because tuberculosis is a chronic infection. It will go and sleep in the lungs. It will not do anything until your immune system are down. So when you're vaccinating a child, when the child has already been exposed to a virulent strain of that organism, it will not do so well to the child. We want to give the child the one that is weakened, that cannot cause a disease, so that the body develops memory for that organism, so that when the child comes in contact with the virulent form, the body will react to it, and there will not be anywhere the microorganism will go and hibernate. Now, the second reason why we vaccinate the child is that when the child needs the protection the most. Now, there are certain immunity the child gets from a mother, but as the child is growing, those immunity will wane. Like what we call immunity that are transferred from the mother's blood into the child. Already, an adult has some exposure to microorganisms. Your body have been able to handle those infections to a certain level where you have developed some immunity to those infections. When a baby is in the womb, the baby is naive to most of these organisms. So that placenta passes, the antibodies passes through the placenta and protect the child for the very early phase of the child's life. So you find out that a child you're giving, the mother, like let's say measles now, a mother may have had measles as a child. Measles, can give, a mother who had measles may have immunity, or may have been immunized for measles, because it's a live organism, can have immunity for life, like we say. So when a woman is pregnant with her baby, the antibodies will go through the placenta and protect the child. But by the time you get into 6 months to 1 year, the amount of antibody that pass through the placenta will begin to wane. So it becomes a very important time that the child should begin to get her own or his own booster immunization to develop the immunity in the child. Please, next slide. So these vaccines that we are talking about, do they have side effects? Yes, they have side effects, and they have what we call adverse effect, adverse reaction. Now, their difference is that side effect is something I know I expect I will get when I give this vaccine. I'm putting a needle in a child's hand. I expect the child to cry. So when we see them crying, we smile with them, we laugh, and within a short time, the children, they forget it. When they come out from the room, we see them all smiling because they know the value of what we give to them. So they're like, I took the shot. So they just start smiling. So we expect pain. Sometimes we expect redness around that area because it was an intact skin. We breached the skin and we gave some antigens. So we expect redness. There are certain vaccines we expect swelling around that area, like when we give penta vaccine. Some mother will shout out, my child cannot move my leg for 3 days or for 2 days. We expect those kind of pain. So we talk to them nicely. Maybe you can do cold compress, warm compress, depending on what we see. We expect the child to have muscle pain. I don't know how many of you that took COVID vaccine and was able to move your hand so freely. We expect some myalgia, some muscle pain around that area. Sometimes it may extend to the joint. Then what we call lymph nodes, those are some lymphatic organs that are around certain, they are like when you have an injury in the leg, it will swell. You just feel, I can feel this swelling here. Those things are lymph nodes. So we expect them to swell because we introduce an organism, an antigen to that area. So they will react. They are the organs that contain these T cells that play the role in immunity. Sometimes they swell because they are working. So you see that those areas will swell. Now, adverse reaction is reactions that we don't expect, but they do occur. I met a mother yesterday who told me that she gave her child fruit so good. The child's tongue was swollen, the scrotum was swollen. Is it possible? Yes. It's a reaction that was not expected to get from what? From fruit so good. So what did we do? It's an allergy. Try another food that is, let's do allergy testing and find out what the child is allergic to. That's the step forward. So sometimes when we immunize, we see some reactions that are exaggerated. Like a child may convulse. It's an adverse reaction. A child may have there are some children that have had what we call reaction, maybe encephalitis, or they develop an infection from the vaccination. Like a child may get BCG and develop what we call BCGitis. Okay? It's an adverse reaction. So it is important we know the difference. It is unexpected. But the truth about it is that the vaccines are made in such a way that millions of times they are safe. So these adverse reactions are treated very aggressively. When we get them, we report them, we want to know the batch number. They will have to go through the process to review how the vaccine was prepared to know whether there was an error. Because their safety margin is very high. There is no space for any mistake. They can recall back vaccines just to make sure that they narrow the adverse reaction to the barest minimum. Next slide, please. So, what are the barriers? When we talk about vaccination, why is it that everybody is not getting vaccinated? How come that we are still preaching vaccination from 1979 when our Professor Rasom Kuti brought vaccine? We are still preaching it to today because we realize that we have certain barriers to effective vaccination. Those barriers exist in different levels, in our cultural level, in our academical level. But I'm just going to speak on very few of those barriers. Number one is that there are certain hospitals that don't have knowledge of vaccination. Once the baby is delivered, they tell you, well, vaccination point is at that point. You're going to meet somebody who knows nothing about vaccine. They just taught the person that, see, when the baby is at birth, you give this, you give this, you give that. So the person just keep giving vaccine without providing adequate knowledge to the family. Sometimes the child may even not know which vaccine to take, or which is an age-appropriate vaccine, or which are the trending vaccines that are available now, because at every point in time, there are newer vaccines that are introduced. Some of them are not covered by the national program, that's the organization that controls immunization. So that lack of knowledge will prevent an individual from getting effective vaccination. Sometimes it can be on the side of the parents. They don't really know. They were born, everybody celebrated, they went home. The doctor never told them to come back for vaccination. And you're meeting the child when the child is 8 months. And you're like, did you come to say nobody told me? So you see, those things exist. Those are barriers to effective vaccination. Sometimes there's confusion about the vaccination schedule. I've seen so many people that traveled across different countries bringing different schedule. Some people want to do American one, some people want to do British one, some people want to do the one from one African country, some are, you see different schedule. Say, no, this is the one I want to get. That this is the one my country. You live in Nigeria, you're from Kenya, I want to take the program of Kenya. The pattern of organism differ across communities. Those are things that we sometimes bring to the knowledge of our parents. I agree, you're from Iran, but you're in Nigeria. Your child is at risk of the disease we have here. You're from the United States. They don't bother so much about BCG, But here, tuberculosis is, we are one of the tuberculosis capital of the world. So we are emphatic about some of our vaccines. So it's important we get this schedule clear and we discuss with parents and amongst ourselves so that there's no confusion about it. Now, some people are afraid of the vaccine safety. Say no, that the one they came to our village to do was to give a vaccine so that people will be impotent. And they say they feel the vaccines are not safe. They say no. This vaccine, they show that what they were giving in that place was to make Africans impotent. So those informations are real misconception. A lot of people now doubt that vaccines are not safe. I won't vaccinate. And I won't lie to you. When you go online and you check, there are always a divide to everything. People that are for and against. When COVID came, people say it's the end of the world, that God is coming. Some people gave a lot of postulation. But as time is going, we are beginning to see for ourselves the reality of things. A lot of people that took the vaccines have not turned zombies. A lot of people say the vaccine will make a lot of people zombies. We have not become zombies. So most of those things are put out there. I don't know why. Maybe just to stop the good works. So a lot of people put up a lot of things there, just to discourage the good works. So it's important we know vaccines are safe. And it's important we encourage ourselves to get vaccine. Now, some people are afraid of adverse reaction. My child, the other one, I give the BCG, the leg swell. This one, please, just give the oral one. Don't give this one. Why? Because they felt that what happened the other time is going to happen again. Now, there are certain adverse reactions that we can advise you that for this vaccine, don't take it again. But that's based on one-on-one. It's not something we'll, there are certain reactions. A child that has maybe encephalitis from taking DPT, we will now say, don't take DPT. We will go and get the one we call the acellular pertussis and give the child, because we have an option for that. But if you now say, oh, because this child has had reaction to paracetamol, remove all the paracetamol in the market, that won't really go well. So we look at adverse reaction and we advise. Sometimes some mothers are scared. I don't want my child to cry. I don't want my child to start feeling pain from birth. Please, I wouldn't want that. Just leave my child. Don't vaccinate my child. Those are big barriers to effective vaccination. So when we meet, we talk about this because it's on a personal level. You find out it's not generalized. But if maybe in the future it becomes a fundamental human right where somebody can be taken to court and maybe some actions taken against it, we may begin to be more aggressive in that line. Now, some mothers have what we call inconvenience of the immunization process. They don't want to come to hospital. Kai, I came to hospital last week. Oh, they're telling me to come back again. Oh, God, don't worry, I'll come 10 weeks, then I'll combine one of 6 weeks and 10 weeks together. You give them together, okay? And you're saying, no, madam, no, it's not how it's done. He said, you don't understand, I'm a very busy woman. No. I am very busy. I can't be coming to the hospital like this. So those are things that create a lot of barrier when we want to immunize our children. Some people actually, I beg, they would give the instruction and they won't see through who takes the child to the clinic and the child misses the vaccine that is appropriate for each. Then, on our own side, sometimes you come to the hospital, we are available for vaccine, but we don't have the drugs because they are not in stock, they are not available in the country, or they are not available in our own hospital. So you find out that sometimes lack of vaccine, unavailability of vaccine can be a barrier. You've come 3 times, you've come 4 times, and you're not able to get the vaccine. So you find out that it's a very big barrier to effective vaccination. So those are major areas. The lack of knowledge on indication and contraindication. Some children, once they have fever, they've cancelled vaccine. Once they are stooling, they've cancelled vaccine. When the child is coughing, they've cancelled vaccine. So you find out that vaccine that is due for this month, the child will cough that week of vaccination. They will give antibiotics. They will wait on Friday, the child has stopped coughing. Say, okay, by Tuesday I will go. By Tuesday, the child is stooling. They cancel the immunization. By the time you're meeting the child has reached 3 months and has missed the vaccine he's supposed to get. So they don't really know when to give and when not to give vaccine. So those are barriers and this come across all levels. Some healthcare workers just cancel vaccine without really knowing the indication and the contraindication for vaccination. Then absence of a reminder system. Now, this is one very key part we want to address this day in DMC. We want to start what we call booked appointments. We will remind you, please come. Your vaccine is due. Come, we're waiting for you. So we're going to start that this day in DMC. So don't feel inconvenienced when you get a text from us, telling you that please your vaccine is due. Come, we want to see your child. That's one thing that is lacking in most people forget. And truly people forget. I forget as well too. So I think this will be something that will help us improve, in course of catering for our child. I've also talked about a little about misconception about vaccine. It goes across different level, religious level, cultural level. There are so many misconceptions which is not true. It's not true. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, sorry I've been talking for quite some time now. Vaccine work as partners with your child immunity. Vaccine is like an inducer. It wakes your immunity up. Say, wake up. Be vigilant against this organism. Don't let this invader take you unawares. So those are very important role vaccine play for us. Vaccine can prevent more than 25 diseases that kills children. We want more vaccines. We want because it has saved many lives. I told you 3.5 to 5 million children are saved annually just by vaccination. That's a large number of people that are saved by it. Vaccine preventable disease outbreaks still occur. And when they do, vaccine is what gives the power to protect. So there are outbreaks of cholera, there are outbreaks of measles, there are outbreaks of so many other diseases. They still do occur, but it is vaccination that gives that power to protect. The child stays safe. Please, I want to end by saying that vaccine are safe. So please, let's encourage ourselves, one another. Let's vaccinate our children. Thank you very, very much.
The platform to give a song, Duduke. And head nurse, deputy is here. Head of pediatric nursing is also here. And our chief president is here, Dr. Konko is here. Dr. Uche is also here, our own Dr. Lima is here. Most importantly, also our Chief Medical Director, Dr. Dausa. We'll be rounding up, but it's time for questions and answers. One of the vaccines that even we start giving to the baby while the baby is inside the womb is for tetanus, and it continues again after. But some women are worried. They said that they have already taken WHO program. Dr. Charles was just telling us that people may forget the schedule. The WHO standard vaccine is the first one at contact, second one after 4 weeks, 6 months, 1 year, and then 5 years later. Then you can be giving booster doses every either 10 years or when you come into contact with something. But for us in Nigeria, because people will forget, people will not come. The SOGON, Society of Obstetricians and Gynecology in Nigeria, decided that we'll give at least 2 doses in each pregnancy, and we found out that it is safe. So if you have not received vaccination and your pregnancy is already after 16 weeks, make sure you ask your doctor, have I received tetanus toxoid vaccine? This is one of the vaccines we start even giving when the baby is inside the womb, but it's also protecting the mother. So you people have to know that one. Dr. Charles will address one issue also. Dr. Charles, there's one worry about vaccine that you didn't bring up. Autism. I want you to, when you come to, you will start with it while head nurses, yes, especially with MMR. So there are a lot of questions concerning vaccine about its safety that you have tried to say that vaccine is safe. Vaccine is safe. We can't have 303.5 million Nigerians dying, our children dying. How can we be labeled as one of the worst countries to be delivered in because our children are dying? So he'll be addressing this issue. But everyone wants to give us Duduke by Simi. While the questions are being, please, pregnant women, drink your water, make sure you move around, exercise your legs, don't sit down for too long. If us we're doing it, please do it. Dr. Charles will be back and the team will be here to back you up.
First, let me say to you, I cannot wait to see you. You are the treasure I've been waiting for. Do you know how much I really need you? I dey pray for the day when I can finally kiss you. You don't say every day I dey pray for you. In my heart, so there is a permanent place for you. That's why my heart is a bit like do-do-care. 'Cause now you are choose, oh, I offend me. I sing for you and I be like do-do-care. Baby, now you are gonna pick, oh, I offend me, I offend.
Thank you, everybody. Waves. Let's put our hands together for them. You know, some of us are old school. Me, I whispered to Dr. Concord by my side here. I say, I've never heard this music before. But I'm sure some of you know it and love it here. You know, there's a paradigm shift now. We are old schools now. These young people now, we don't know what they are doing now. So these songs, we just keep on hearing it, something booga. Well done, well done. Now there's a preschool prerequisite that your child must have a certificate of vaccination before he goes to school. As early as 2 years now. We sign a lot of certificates for them to enable them to go to school. So it is very important that you appreciate that your child has to be vaccinated, your child has to be protected. I'm sure Dr. Charles will start addressing the questions or the comments I made before. Head nurse start reading out some of the questions for him to answer. Dr. Charles, you want to start by responding to some of my comments and then maybe or you just take them with the first question. Go ahead with the first question.
Be free. Fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, CMD sir. Good afternoon, DCS, every other protocol junior observe, and good afternoon, everybody. I have two written questions with me. The first one is, what happens if a child develops a disease before the time of the vaccine? Then the second one is, for instance, can a child develop measles before 9 months?
That's a very, very good question. The answer is yes. A child can have an infection before the vaccine is given. And the two questions are actually the same question. Measles can happen before the child gets measles vaccine. Measles vaccine is given first at 9 months, then the second dose is given when the child is 1 year. Now, but it's a terrible thing to have measles before 9 months. In most cases, when it happens, you find out that the child suffers so much. The morbidity, the illness the child gets is so much. So it's something we don't pray for. You know, that's one, there's some habits we have naturally without knowing that protects children from infection. Children are well protected. They're always in the arms of their parents. When they sleep, they are in the nets. The number of contacts they meet are few. But it do happen that a younger one can go to school, come back home with measles. So when a child gets measles early in life, it's actually not so nice. Most children in those days end up with blindness, meningitis, and all whatnot. It's something we don't pray for. Now, but we should know that there are mimickers of measles. There are so many things that may look like measles, but they are not measles. We have the German measles. We have so many infections that when they appear, they'll come with rash. So we go ahead and immunize that child when the child is well, if the child has recovered from that illness. So we'll go ahead and give. It would now form like a booster dose. We know that measles is likely a lifelong infection. It gives lifelong immunity. But because there are millions of known and unknown mimickers of measles, we'll still go ahead and immunize that child for measles because we know what we are giving. You know, we may not know if the child had measles or something that looked like measles. Mimickers means something that looked like measles, but not measles. Okay? So that's why. So we don't want the child to have measles, assuming the child did not get measles. Now, somebody can get immunized and still have measles. Now, the measles vaccine will not stop you from having, there are major things that happen before infection will happen. Number one is how virulent is that organism? How virulent? The other one is what is the inoculating dose? And the third one is what's the level of immunity someone has. If someone has not been immunized for measles, the tendency of getting measles infection when you come in contact is high. If I'm immunized, there's a tendency that I may not even have the measles when I come in contact. But if the inoculating dose I get in contact with is high enough to overwhelm my immunity, I may end up coming down with measles infection. Because it's a war between your own antibody with the organisms. Those organisms, when they come into the body, they use our body as their manufacturing home to make copies of themselves. So those are what happens with those infections. So I don't think.
Would you like to comment about the autism?
Okay, the issue of autism, we know that there is a strong group of people who are against vaccination. They believe that I don't know, they are naturalists. They just believe that people should, get protection in life. Life should just happen naturally. But if you look at records, it didn't favor us. We know the records of our morbidity mortality in the past. A large number of people were dying from diseases we can prevent now, And someone now tried to bring out an information that MMRO causes autism. But by doing what we call fabrication, he didn't do what is meant to be. He fabricated the information he put out there, and he was punished because, the information caused a lot of stir globally. A lot of people were allowed. He was trying to link MMR to autism, which most studies have refuted. Now, we have millions of people that have had MMR. MMR is actually given early. It's given at the age of 1 year. Now, autism is a disease, a developmental disease. When you say a child that is autistic, the problem the child has three areas. There's impairment in behavior. There's also impairment in communication. And there's also impairment in social interaction. Most children, that's their developmental stage, it becomes evident from 2 years. It's early. You just see what we call early signs of autism. It doesn't happen at the age of 1. So if somebody receives vaccine at 1 year, before the child gets to 1 year, the child has had series of other vaccines that include BCG, Penta, and other one. So linking MMR that someone gets at 1 year to a disease that the early sign you will notice in the child is at 2 years. A lot of people didn't find that relationship. Now, what are the early signs of autism? The child is somehow alone. You don't see him share interests. As the child is growing, you want to see the child share interests. A plane is passing, the child will want to point at the plane. But the child that is autistic will just not be moved. You're trying to get the child's attention, the child is not paying attention to you. So when we see those early signs in children, a child who is not expressing interest, a child you're looking at, the child is not looking at you, the child cannot communicate well. We begin to say there is a tendency for this child to be autistic. Now, we know people want to do breakthrough in science, but we encourage that they should use the right mode of those breakthroughs, not to fabricate information and put the word at a very bad level. Many studies have shown there's no link between MMR. There's no cover-up in that. There have been no issue on that.
Good morning. Thanks, Dr. Charles. I have just 2 questions. The first is when you started, you listed out the different types of vaccine. I clearly saw COVID-19, and you did mention it's the latest. But in the course of looking at the various vaccines that a child should get, that wasn't mentioned. Just to ask the place of COVID-19 vaccine for a child. And then also, Dr. Usman did talk about some immunization that the mother even begins to take for the child while pregnant. Again, looking at COVID-19, where do you think, what do you think? Do you think it would be helpful for a mother to take it during pregnancy for herself and maybe for the child too? So what's your thoughts around COVID-19 vaccine and the child? That's one. Secondly, we clearly saw the schedule of immunization for a child up to adolescence. For a child that has very meticulously gone through all of those schedules, what's the place of other booster vaccines? There are times when there are campaigns on polio and you're told it doesn't matter whether your child has had polio vaccine, just take again. So the question is, how often would you take again beyond the routine or normal schedule? Can it be too much? Thank you.
Let's take the next question. Yes. Okay. Dr. Konko. Okay. Dr. Konko also assists you with the immunization. I mean, for COVID in pregnancy.
I think there was. Sorry, I may forget. I'm really sorry. I will take it one at a time. The issue about immunizing children for COVID. At the initial heat of COVID, we realized that we're not admitting children. We're admitting their parents. So the focus was, how do we protect parents? And the parents initially were grandparents. So you find out that at a certain age, a lot of people were like, I work also in a government hospital. The chief medical director called me and told me I'm the youngest consultant, that everybody here is older than me, that I'm going to head COVID center. And I looked at him, I said, why? He said, because some of them are older than you, they have diabetes, they have hypertension. He brought my medical folder and said, I'm with your medical report. You're heading COVID center. You know, why? Because people they were admitting then had COVID. They were elderly. So the focus was on this disease kind of segregated children. But we now later knew that children had COVID in a different way. They were coming with things like measles, fever, but their recovery was even faster than the older people, and mortality wasn't as much as it were in the other group. So usually you wouldn't want to, it was a novel, there are phases vaccines go through before they can be used. They go through a long clinical trials. But because we needed to use something accurately, they introduced the COVID vaccine without it going through all those phases. So it won't be proper to now inoculate it in someone whose future is way, way ahead of him. So that was why children initially were removed from it. Now, in some countries, they have brought down the age of vaccination to even 5. Some people, 18, they don't immunize children. But some countries are beginning to bring it down. They believe that the vaccine is safe. So I don't know what it will become in Nigeria in the near future. Maybe adolescents may start getting vaccinated. They may bring it down to 5 years. And before you know it, we like getting vaccines. Children under 5 are the ones that come to hospital more. By the time they are getting to a certain age, their parents no longer care about hospital visits. And most of our health strategy will try to focus on the under 5. If COVID becomes a big problem for under 5 in Nigeria, then it can be incorporated. But for now, I don't think it's a major area of focus. There was a second question you asked again. Booster dose, yes. Now, some vaccines, booster dose are 5 years. But when you look at the impact of the disease with the age, you know, most under 5, we just pray, like I was praying, my last child should be above 5 years old. My last child should be, because diarrhea, under 5. Meningitis, under 5. You know, when you see a disease outbreak in an area, the most hits are under 5 years old. So it's like a golden birthday. When a child hits 5 years and above, most parents will just relax. Leave the child alone. Why? Because the child has learned certain protective mechanism. He has learned to stay on his own. He has learned to know how to avoid somebody that is coughing. He has learned certain things. But under 5 children, they will see somebody drooling. They will use their nose and hand and clean it for the person. They want to, you know, they are just wonderful. They're terrible. You know, that's how they are. But, you know, basically, when some people get to that age, they no longer bother. But we know certain parents want their child to get the booster until the child is old enough to take the decision for himself. They'll now remove their hand. So when we see those ones, we still give them their age-appropriate booster dose. But is it in the scheme? The answer is no. What's in the scheme for now for most adolescents is the HPV vaccination. So most of the times when they get, but certain individuals that have certain conditions, like those that have sickle cell disease, you know, those that have nephrotic syndrome, those are diseases that causes severe immunity. So we provide them special vaccine. We call it special vaccine. We give them a vaccination program that runs through into almost adulthood, and they even continue in adulthood, so that their level of debilitation will be very less with those infections. Okay, under 5. Yes, for the campaign, there was a presentation I saw. It was a kind of focus, about vaccination. They compared the outbreak of the polio virus among people who had been vaccinated. People who had 1 vaccine, 2 vaccine. The basic one we have is 4 at birth, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 14 weeks. 4. That's the minimum that is recommended for polio. Now, but we have two NIDs, National Immunization Days. They go class to class, door to door, immunizing children. That is, they try to do that kind of immunization to give an extra, because it was a global strategy to see how they can curtail the infection. There are people that don't go to healthcare. Now, they found out that those people that have gotten doses above 10, the frequency of them having polio were small. So that was why the encouragement that people can get as multiple doses as possible. And it is oral. So we don't know the content, the amount of the oral polio, because that's our strategy to root oral poliovirus, that actually gets, to induce the immunity that is desired. So the more people get, it was found out that the frequency of them having polio was less. So they encourage more this other one. So when the child has gotten the 4, they still tell you, go ahead and give don't segregate, give everybody that is in the class. So those are what was found out from that study. So it was still a strategy to eradicate polio, because our target was 1-0 polio in Nigeria. That's what we want.
Okay, so latch on to Dr. Charles's response. So a portion of the last person's questions had to deal with pregnant women and vaccination. So there was a question about what are the vaccines that a pregnant woman is meant to take to protect her child. And the question was, is COVID one of them? I would say that currently, the only vaccine that pregnant women are, by rule and by a standard practice, supposed to take in Nigeria is tetanus vaccine, tetanus toxoid. In other countries, sometimes it's a little bit different. Tetanus is central. Sometimes they actually give the entire DPT. There's tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis, which is a part of what children take. So, and that is tradition in a few countries. In our country, it is tetanus toxoid as the standard. And the purpose is to protect the baby, and of course the mother as well. The mother can be at risk of tetanus, but particularly the baby gains from that exercise. Regarding COVID and pregnancy, just like they mentioned, and like we all know, COVID is new. So by being new, a lot of things were evolving during the epidemic or the pandemic. And because it was such a terrible thing that was happening, the whole world was in lockdown. Research was actively going on, and as things were being discovered, the rules were changing. So who should be vaccinated was changing over time. And sometimes it would take time, months, and sometimes years, before you can actually completely tell whether this is actually very beneficial and should be given to such and such groups or not. So that's exactly what happened. Initially, pregnant women were completely shut out because nobody knew this new virus, what it was able to do, or these new vaccines, what they were able to do in the long term. So the rule was, don't give to pregnant women, don't give to children, give it to like the child said, those who were most likely to get the disease and have serious problems with it. And then they were dropping the age until it came to where it is today. And then eventually pregnant women were now included officially, about a year ago or half a year ago. With the research coming out more and more that those women who maybe incidentally took the vaccine, not knowing they were pregnant, or who were too afraid to not take it and they took it. So data was collated and we found that it was safe to give it to pregnant women, relatively safe, safer than not giving. So the recommendation changed and said that pregnant women should take it. Now, who is he protecting? It was to protect the pregnant woman herself, primarily. Now, I'm not sure how many children now born to pregnant women that research has allowed us to now check the children, whether because their mother took it, were they now protected from COVID? And was it now safe for them? And the truth is that sometimes it might take years and years before whatever a child got in the uterus and the womb to manifest. So some of these answers can't be given yet. But the more the pandemic recedes, at least in most of all these countries except China, the more it recedes and looks like something that we dreamt in the past, the more we're confident that we can, avoid these immunizations for uncertain groups like pregnant women. But currently the recommendation is that please, pregnant women should be vaccinated, at least for themselves. And it looks reasonably safe for the babies too. And that's how I'll put it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocols. My question is on the side effects of the vaccines you mentioned. I want to know at what point it's safe to postpone a vaccine. If, for instance, a child is having pain as a result of a vaccine, how long does that pain last before it's due for the next vaccine? And if it comes for the next vaccine and the pain is still there, is it safe to give that vaccine to the child, knowing that another pain will erupt in the process? That's what I want to know. Thank you so much.
Well done. Well, the side effects, pain is actually one of the minor side effects. And we know parents don't like pain, particularly when it happens with swelling or the child is not able to move the leg. Yeah, but it happens. But the good thing about it is that we actually have two limbs. We'll encourage you, we'll beg you, we'll be managing that leg. When it is 4 weeks later, we'll use the other leg. And be begging you. The two of them will go. That's how we go about it. The issue is that the value of the vaccine is way more than the pain they get. We know that we're hoping in the future when vaccines, will be developed in a way they will all be orally given, like oral polio. We want to give DPT, just squeeze it in your mouth, no pain, But we will get there. There have been breakthrough, just that they've not been made available. So probably we will get there. That's something driving some scientists. Painless immunization.
Dr. Coco wants to ask Dr. Charles a question.
On behalf of our clients,
Non-accidental patients.
It's about price and cost. So during your presentation, of course, you alluded to the fact that not all these things are, I don't know. Which of these, let me just get to the point. Which of these vaccines, or are all these vaccines covered by the government programs? The reason why I ask is this. Many of our clients, or maybe some of our clients, they say, you people, this thing are expensive. Your vaccination programs are expensive. I don't have so amount to pay. Behind my house or in front of my street or near my church, I'll go there and get it all free. So is it true that they can get these same vaccine services all through? Is it just the effigy of our environment that is making our vaccines more expensive?
I actually say this, that vaccination is a process. In fact, it's a very huge investment. There are certain vaccines that, working as a member of PAN at certain time, PAN is the Pediatric Association of Nigeria, we have pressed that certain vaccines should be introduced. By the time they do the cost analysis, they'll tell you that it is more than Nigeria budget for that year, not approved. It took effort before rotavirus was included in the scheme. I will know how much government pay to get vaccine. Now, but bring it down. There are processes that are involved in ensuring that vaccine, particularly the live-attenuated vaccine, from the point of manufacturing to the recipient is safe. You need an effective cold chain system. There are places I can't give vaccine to my child. You see these people that carry boxes. When they come, I tell them, open your box. If they don't have ice pack, they cannot even come into my compound. They are carrying boxes and they don't have ice pack in it. They're just giving people poison in the name of vaccine. So you need to invest heavily to be sure that what you're giving to someone is vaccine. Unfortunately, a lot of people have received the jab, but they are not vaccinated. In some countries, they measure your titer. After you vaccinate at a certain age, they'll go and check. They'll check your hepatitis titer. How much is it? You vaccinated. They want to know if you need a booster dose. These booster doses are not just given blindly. They're like, your booster dose is actually below recommended. So it costs money to keep vaccine safe. There are healthcare centers I've gone to inspect and are like, oh no, this is no. And they are government organization. There's nothing they can do. On the day of vaccination, they'll bring out the vaccine and they will vaccinate. That's the truth. Because people will come, they won't tell them, please go. We don't have light for 3 days. We don't have ice pack for this. They will vaccinate. The vaccine fridges they use are suboptimal. And the vaccines are given. So it is important we know the value of what we want to give. And that's what we do in DMC. We put value, we put quality above all. So when we cost this, most of our vaccines, we source it. When we cost what we source, in fact, it is subsidized. If we put the true cost for the vaccine, it may be more than what people pay. Sorry, I may advocate for increase, but my organ said no. Let's keep it the way it is. So I think that is what I have to say on that.
Oga will be speaking very soon, Dr. Charles. The head of pediatric nursing is here, our own Ngozi. See the chart there that they give those vaccines. They are the one. Finally, here, before you take that vaccine, you must see a doctor. They must check your temperature. They will examine you. They will do so many things before they send them to Ngozi and her team to give those vaccines. Come and tell us a little bit about this vaccine. Tell us about the card. You give them a card. You tell them when they come back again for that vaccine. How do you get it? Dr. Charles fortunately has now told us that they are going to devise a mechanism, electronic mechanism of reminding parents. But come out and talk to us about this, your chart. And I can see up to the age 13 here. Just mention a little bit about it. And as you finish, our Chief Medical Director will round up our discussion.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm standing on the existing protocol. At birth, after delivery, the doctor will make prescription for at birth vaccine. That's the BCG, OPV, and hepatitis B vaccine. So these vaccines will be given, and we will write in our immunization card, because we have 2 immunization cards, one for a male child and one for a female child, but it's the same, it's just color difference. So when we give, we indicate to the next visit at 6 weeks, and we will go further to give you the date for you to come back for the 6 weeks immunization. So at 6 weeks, and we usually, like if the baby is 6 weeks on Monday or Tuesday, you will come on Wednesday. But definitely we must have calculated it before we put the date for you. Our immunization days are Wednesdays and Saturdays. So at 6 weeks also, the baby will have the OPV 2, IPV 1. Dr. Charles has already explained the immunization. Then Penta and Gota virus vaccine at 6 weeks. At that 6 weeks also, after immunization, we also give appointments at 10 weeks, and we put the dates. That's how we do it. Then, and before this immunization is being given, the nurse will explain the side effect. They will explain, first of all, explain this immunization, what the baby is going to have, take that day. The nurse will explain to you and also go further to tell you the site of which the immunization will be given and the side effects, what you are expected to do. Definitely, the person giving the immunization will counsel you on what you are to do and how to manage the pain, the fever, and everything. Most times we encourage our mothers not to give paracetamol before the immunization, but you see them before they come, they've already given the immunization, and when you ask them, they say they don't want pain. But the right thing is this: when immunization is being, you're supposed to allow the immunization to work before, like Penta. The side effects of Penta, yes, it's 5 vaccines in one. It's painful, and the baby can cry, will be cranky, and all that. But the right thing is, when you bring the baby after the immunization, you have to monitor the vitals of this baby. Every child delivered in DMC will give them thermometer. You gradually monitor the vitals of this baby. When you notice that the temperature is gradually going up, there are some things you need to do. You can tape sponge the baby. You don't need to overclothe the baby. You wear the baby loose clothes. You avoid any tight thing around the baby, and you have to be careful in managing, especially the left thigh, because that is where the Penta vaccine is usually given. So you have to be very careful with the left thigh. Then when you now do all these things and you notice that the baby's temperature is still going high, by that time the drugs, the vaccine is now working. That's when you give the paracetamol. We will preach all these things, but mother will still give this paracetamol at home before bringing the baby to the hospital. That's fine. There is nothing we can do about that. Then the BCG is given under the skin. So when this immunization is being given, we usually advise the mother on what to do about BCG. It's given under the skin, so you have to be careful on how to carry the baby, so that it's under the skin. So any rough day around that place, the vaccine can come out. So you have to be careful on the left arm after immunization. This immunization, BCG, doesn't cause fever. You will see even at 9 months, mothers will come for immunization at 9 months. They will tell you that, nurse, I have given paracetamol. You'll be like, 9 months immunization. It doesn't give fever. But you are used to the paracetamol stuff as registered. Every immunization, they will give paracetamol. So I want to let us know that is this 10 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks I usually give babies fever. And barrister asked if the pain can continue till the next time. No. The highest pain, the pain can just happen within 24 to 72 hours. Max, that's the highest. Unless if there is swelling. And when there is swelling, we usually advise not to massage that site. What you can do is just to wrap eyes, cold, and apply it there. Definitely it will go. And here, most times it's very, very difficult for you to notice abscess in DMCs. It's impossible. It's very rare, because we are careful, and it's not everybody that immunized. We are very careful in doing that. So it's hardly you see a baby with abscess in DMC. Very, very difficult. So 9 months immunization is a vitamin A. In our chart, you will see 6 months. But there is no need to kind of tell our parents to come at 6 months, then come back at 9 months. So what we do, we had to ask the mother to come at 9 months, so that at 9 months, the baby can take the vitamin A, measles vaccines, yellow fever, and meningococcal A vaccine. So this vaccine doesn't give fever. It's just pain the baby will just experience at that point in time, and that's it. So at 12 to 15 months, that's when we give this MMR. In fact, we've had some mothers, when they come, they ask us that this MMR usually make the male child to be impotent. You'll be like, how? So there is no study like that. The MMR is very safe and safe. So we give MMR, PCV13, varicella, and vitamin A at 12 to 15 months. So at 18 months, that's where the baby also gets the booster shot of the OPV and IPV and DT. Then this 18 months, because there is DPT, baby can have fever, but it's usually very mild. Because most of the babies, they don't experience, they don't have fever. And we usually tell mothers not to give paracetamol. So at 2 years, the baby will now take the typhoid fever vaccine and meningitis vaccine. Then at 5 years, that's another stage for immunization. That's when the baby will also have the second shot of MMR, the IPV, DT, and OPV. That's it. Then the 11 to 13 years is basically for a female child, the Savares. That's the one that is for cervical cancer protection. And that one is not available in the country for a very long time. So we are hoping and believing that it will come. I don't know if there's any question. Thank you. So mothers, please, when you come for immunization, don't give your babies paracetamol at home. We should try to allow the vaccine to work first before we give.
Final question, how much? All through to maybe 5 years, how much? Or to 2 years, how much is the cost? Yes.
I don't know, I'm not a billionaire. My duty is to give the vaccine. But truly, the vaccine at birth is not expensive. 6 weeks, the rotavirus that we give in DMC is not the same rotavirus. We give our DMC, we sought for this our vaccine. And another thing you should know that, Dr. Charles, somebody asked question about getting disease after having the immunization. Another thing that can cause it is break in cold chain. So sometimes other facilities, their vaccine is not well preserved. So there is a break in cold chain. When you take that kind of vaccine, it's not going to cover for it. But here we have a too solid cold chain that we manage ourselves. And I don't know what to say again.
Thank you. You have said a lot. Thank you, Head of Pediatric Nursing. Cervarix may not be available. Occasionally it comes and goes, but there's an alternative called Gardasil. And we can even give as low as 8 years. But it's less potent than Cervarix. It doesn't cover all the strains for prevention of cervical cancer, because it's given for human papilloma virus. Let's thank once more the pediatric team as we put our hands together, as we invite Dr. Idahosa to give the closing remarks. And our time is fast spent, but we have to listen to these closing remarks. Very important closing remarks. Well done. The floor is at you, sir.
Thank you. Director of Clinical Services and the other members of the DIF team, our students, thank you for coming to today's program, and thank the guest lecturer. A few questions for you as I pass my closing remarks. Can you go to people's homes to give vaccines if they can afford it, since we have a mobile clinic and we have the cold chain capacity? Krakow.
So it depends. No, we can, but it depends.
It depends. On what?
Staffing, sir.
Huh?
Staff strength, sir.
It's money.
No.
The person can afford it.
Sir,
Dr. Charles, we have sent people to Lagos, Port Harcourt. PD, you pay the money?
Sir, we will do so. We will just ask for more nurses, sir.
Director of Clinical Services, I don't understand what... I don't understand what Dr. Charles...
No, Dr. Charles is not manpower. It's not manpower.
It's not manpower.
We have capacity.
Answer.
Yes, we do. Yes. Well, what happens is that you pay for it, because it's a home service, so you pay for home service. We've been doing that.
Of course.
We've done that.
Plenty
previous
times.
years. Yes.
So we can do it.
Yes, sir.
That's just to deal with the issue of people who forget. Remind them, and they say they are busy. Vaccine, immunization is a fundamental human right. Dr. Charles, the national immunization program, is it different from DIF Medical Centers program? I want to know, is it different?
It's actually not different, but we have an expanded program because the national program is funded by government. So they try to do what financially they can cover. So we have additional vaccines that are not covered by the national program. Our children benefit from.
Like which one?
Plenty of them, sir. First of all, they just introduced rotavirus into the national program.
Okay.
We were doing rotavirus before they did that. Now, they've introduced Penta well, but beyond Penta, our children are getting meningococcal vaccine, and we're also getting varicella vaccine. We're getting MMR. We're getting varicella is chickenpox. We're getting typhoid vaccine. We're also getting hepatitis vaccine.
Okay.
So those are not in the national program.
What about the vitamin A? Is it part of national?
It's in the national
All
program.
right, that's okay. I just wanted to know. Now, when you go to some centers, you see vaccines stored in home fridges. No. A home fridge and vaccine fridge, they are not the same. You will use one vaccine fridge to buy maybe a dozen of home fridges. What's a dozen? 2 or 3 dozens of them. So that's just the difference. The fact that the cold chain is maintained, somebody get to pay for it. That's the problem. And if you say that prevention is costly, just try curative medicine. Then you will know that prevention is truly better than cure. Thank you for the MMR. Any male that comes to an infertility clinic with an abnormal sperm parameters, I must ask, what's your vaccination? Did you vaccinate against the mumps virus? Because failure to give your male child this vaccine, you may lead to infertility in that child. So if you say MMR is costly, just wait for the cost of doing in vitro fertilization using a donor sperm. You will know that one is definitely cheaper. Well, I think head of pediatric nursing, I heard you say you give every child delivered at DMC a thermometer. Is it true? Oh, fantastic. I just want to be sure. So, let me just then pass comments on keeping your vaccine certificates. 2 weeks ago, my children have a set of triplets doing their university education in the United States. So, and then frantically I was getting a call from one of them that they need her immunization certificate. I said, check, it's in your system, it's in your documents. Keep your immunization certificate. One day they will ask you for it. If you are entering primary school, secondary school, university, particularly outside this country, if you come for it's not easy for us to give you a new certificate. Please keep your vaccine certificates in a fireproof safe because it takes a lot of legal process for us to give you a new certificate. Vaccinations, okay? It is really sad that Nigeria, when you are listing a nation you should not be born, they say don't be born in Afghanistan. I understand. Don't be born in Pakistan. I understand. Why would they say don't be born in Nigeria? It is sad. It's all about poverty. It's all about the misuse of resources. We are so blessed as a nation. Why should Nigeria be labeled as the tuberculosis capital of this world with the kind of natural resources God has endowed us with? I believe that many of you here are carrying children whose performance, activities, and productivity will change the political landscape and narrative and make Nigeria a better place to live in. Maybe we may not see it in our time, hopefully, in the future. For the tetanus vaccine for our pregnant women, you may have read from Dr. Gogul that when you have taken 5 doses of tetanus, there is no need in your new pregnancy? No. Every time you're pregnant, we give you 2 doses. Don't pray for us to forget. And if we forget, please remind us. Once you've gotten to 18 weeks, give it the first dose. 4, 5, 6 weeks later, we'll repeat it. It's your right. But if you leave the shores of Nigeria to continue antenatal care in the Western world, and you are not going, before the 18th week of pregnancy, you are not going to be given vaccine against tetanus abroad. It's good you know that, because it is just considered that it is one of those things that has been eliminated. No. In our country, the land of our birth, the people that are going to handle your children, when you come back, you don't know what they carry. Therefore, you must take vaccines. And those of you who are going to deliver outside this country, they are not going to give your baby BCG at birth. I don't know. Dr. Charles, the child has been delivered, lands in Nigeria 6 weeks thereafter. If you deliver in the United States, deliver in Germany, UK, Dubai, they are not giving BCG at birth. What will you do to that child? Because he has come into a new country. What do we do? Give BCG the day of arrival?
No, we actually do a test first before we give the BCG.
Okay.
The test is, we do a man-2 test. If a child has a reactive response, we'll do a chest X-ray. Then if the chest X-ray is suggestive that the child has had contact with tuberculosis bacilli, we will not give BCG, we will treat the child because the child is naive to TB, so we'll give tuberculosis treatment. But if our man2 is negative, we don't bother to do a chest X-ray, we'll go ahead and immunize the child. That's the process we do here.
Okay, it's good we know this. Well, the Cervarix, I'm just hearing that if we are going to reduce cancer of the cervix in this world, remember that in some nations of this world, there is no cancer of the cervix. And the key they have used to eliminate it is the use of vaccines for the females and the screening tests. The truth is this, all of us put together here, put all our resources together. You can't take off a patient that have a stage 1 cancer of the cervix, stage 1. But it can be prevented. You don't prevent cancer of the cervix, it's your fault. In this day and age, any woman who develops cancer of the cervix is the trappings of your unconverted background, the import of poverty, the negative import of religious vibes that made you have cancer of the cervix. I put it this way. If any woman develops cancer of the cervix in this day and age, it is not the devil that caused it. You are the architect of your misfortune. And that's why we are here. It's so easy to prevent it. When it started, when the vaccine started, people thought that no, girls cannot be exposed to sex until 13 years. Girls are exposed to sex now at 8 years. That is why it was reduced from 11 to 8. Start taking it now so that we will prevent cancer of the cervix. Department of Pediatrics, let me say thank you that from June to December 2022, 7 months, you did not lose one child. We are grateful. Thank you. That is a monumental feat. I'm aware that we delivered a 26-weeker with a congenital heart disease that you have kept now for 3 to 4 months. Thank you. That's a great effort. What we're trying to do is to change the narrative. It is not true that if you deliver in Nigeria, you are disadvantaged. It depends on where you deliver in Nigeria. This is an antenatal class. With me of 37 years postgraduate experience listening. Dr. Osman is here listening. Dr. Konko is listening. The head of our medical, of our cardiology department, our anesthesiologists, the pediatricians, physiotherapists, doctors, nurses, we are all bringing our combined experience of nearly 200 years to listen to one lecture, and then we fill in the gaps. If you go to antenatal classes in other places, it is treated as one of those places for clapping, singing, and just dancing. This is a place where we deliver the critical quantum of information and knowledge that changes the narrative. That's why we're here. We take it so important, we take it so seriously because it's part of preventive medicine. If we must reduce maternal morbidity, if our women must be safe, then every woman who wants to deliver in a hospital, at home and abroad, must ask the following questions. You don't deliver, you don't go to a hospital to attend antenatal or take a delivery because it's owned by your friend, your brother, your relation, by a member of your mosque or church. You deliver in a hospital after you have evaluated the following services. Any hospital that does not have the following things I want to list is either a mere consulting clinic or a mortuary with a fine name. 1, does that hospital have a blood bank? Because bleeding during and after delivery is the leading cause of maternal death across the world. Question 1. Question number 2, does the hospital have a theater? The reason is because normal labor is a retrospective diagnosis. You never can tell the woman that is going to bleed after delivery. You never can tell. So, it's important to say, do you have a theater? And a functional theater for that matter. Thirdly, do you have the personnel that has the capacity to remove the uterus in the event of a cataclysmic bleeding? Question 3. Question number 4, do they have a pediatric unit? Let me tell you. On the 1st of January, by 12:30 a.m., I delivered a set of twins. They were 39 weeks plus 3 days. What did I expect? 39 weeks plus 3 days, you go to the mother in 2 hours. The baby stayed in the neonatal intensive care unit for nearly 8 days. Why? That is how we saw the babies come out at 39 weeks. So nobody can guarantee how a baby is going to respond at delivery. So you need a critical team that is able to help the babies transit from intrauterine to extrauterine life. No, you can't trust me for that. You can't trust Dr. Osman for that. Enrique Unga's team, Dr. Charles, are a million times better than us, despite the fact that Dr. Charles, head of the Department of Pediatrics, was my student. But it doesn't matter. That's how he has exercised his skill. So he's better than me when it comes to. Now you ask 2 more questions. Does that hospital have an anesthetist? And then you'll ask, what is the chance of having a hospital-acquired infection? If you enter our hospital, there's no smell. We walked against it. No smell of Izal, no Dettol, no this, because it was a deliberate attempt to make sure nobody delivers in this hospital and you have a nosocomial infection. Well, I think, Dr. Osman, thank you for creating the enabling environment when we meet again in 2 weeks. But I want to say thank you to Ebony Ways for creating. Those people in the Ebony Ways, you won't believe, they are all staff of the Deaf Medical Center working in different departments. Because Deaf Medical Center is a place where we use human resources that are available, prod them up to manifest, all their God-given potentials in a land of limitless possibilities. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. This was yours, sir. During peace, I won't be able to take One Love by Ebony West. Ebony West, can you please come forward? We won't be able to take One Love. Time is fast spent. Our patients, clients, despite the fact that WHO has defined pregnancy now as a disease, it used to be said that pregnancy is a physiological condition. So we used to call our patients clients. But now we now know that pregnancy can be a disease. So but that is not, you are both clients and our patients. And we have sat down for too long. Our time is fast spent. We'll be here again in 2 weeks' time on the 28th of January 2023. And I'm sure all of you are getting your PVCs ready, and you are getting ready for 25th of February. For those of you that may be delivering before the 28th of February, the head nurse and her team are waiting for you. As we take the national anthem, move forward here and meet head nurse and her team to prepare you for that day. I would like to thank you for listening. I want to thank each and every one of us again. Chief Medical Director, Dr. Charles and your team, well done for this lecture. Let's take just the first stanza of the DIF anthem and the second stanza of our national anthem. Because of time, please appeal to us to be on our feet in respect to our nation and to this legacy that has come to live.
Together bringing hope for the joy of mankind, committed to excellence, home and abroad, motivated we are, together we stand. God bless this legacy. God bless this legacy. O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our lead us right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow and live in just and truth. Great lofty heights attain to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Thank you.
Bulaba. Bala bulu bulaba.